Don't accept the insult of equality. This is just another form of collectivism. And when we're collected into neat piles, we are easy to reign over. We must be individuals practicing non-compliance. We must give them too many pieces to pick up. Chaos begets freedom.
Okay, so I like this line, even though it's a little scary at first. Chaos is a scary word, Julia, begets freedoms. And the line that follows is we have to give them too many pieces to pick up. So a powerful message against collectivism.
Basically, we're grouped up. We're divided into, into political parties. We're divided into race. We're divided into gender, as though it's a bad thing. I think it's okay to be in group, like we're group animals. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be divided in a positive way because we find allegiance with those groups. But the government and, the systems we live under like to make the divisions our identity, and then they like to pin those identities against each other. And they're large identities. So, the simplest one is conservative versus liberal. And they're a lie. They're a complete lie because there's so much crossover. People need to remember that we're irrational. We're not consistent. We change our minds. We have incredible subjective personal experiences that influence our opinions. And to subscribe to some sort of unilateral, unchanging way of life that ultimately is controlled is the most detrimental thing that we can do for ourselves. And it starts at home, and it starts with the family, and it starts with your parents have certain expectations of you, and it starts with conditional love, and it starts with having expectations for yourself that are totally constructed by outside sources that don't actually have any coherence with reality. This is why I think we see so much suicide, because people don't have a way out in their minds. But then at the end of the day, you can find a solution to most problems by simply taking yourself out, or bringing someone in, or changing your environment. You can do something that's not actually drastic to change your life. And you see this with, all these cases of kids getting like bullied or getting into whatever, the typical cases of teenage suicide. And their parents are so stuck in this cultural conformity of, no, we have to go to work like this, and we have to live like this, and we have to live in this neighborhood, drive this car, blah, 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 like all the typical American dream stuff. While their kid is suffering in a system that they don't have to be a part of. And it doesn't even reach their mind so they could take that child out of the system and go move somewhere for a month. Go send your kids somewhere abroad for some time. And to people that's just incomprehensible. It's extreme. What's more extreme? Living and taking action and being fluid and changing your life, or staying the same as everybody else and suffering the same as everybody else. And this is programmed into us. And that's the foundation of how people end up living their whole entire lives, and why we submit to these systems. Chaos is an incredible positive force in our lives. The government is especially obsessed about it, and they are realizing, the more they realize that they can't do it, the more destructive they become, and eventually it will collapse. It will self-cannibalize. And today, actually, I know this will be aired later, but today's the anniversary of 9/11. And since 9/11, our state has been obsessed with the prevention of events. They've been obsessed with non-occurrence of history, because that way everything stays the same and people live the same and they have the power. Well, guess what? That's impossible because of the human condition.
It's certainly finite. Yeah. It's not going to last much longer. It doesn't look like. And let's go back to a smaller scale. And I want to jump on a couple of things that you said. First of all, I told this story once on the show before, maybe like 5 years ago, when I was working as a tutor, I went to consult with this family and they had a 9th grade boy. So I just do an initial consult, talk about what we're going to do. And then I think we set our first appointment something like a week later. Between the consult and the first meeting, the boy, who was 14, he was a freshman at the same high school I went to, committed suicide, hung himself. And when we talk about, and I thought about it a lot after that because, and it wasn't like a healthy exercise or a constructive exercise, but I couldn't stop thinking, like, if I had just had like 3 weeks to inject some of my knowledge, maybe it's possible that it could have been enough, a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because that's what is lacking for so many of these people who are trapped in this routine. So instead of even using a word chaos, like in some cases, in cases like that, just a disruption or the creation of a discomfort through seeing something new. Like you talked about, like, hey, kid, let's get away from here for a month, and just see that this is not the whole world. And I felt like that was so tragic. I mean, I remember being 12, 13, 14 years old. All those years sucked. Mm-hmm. Middle school? Are you kidding me?
Sucked for everybody. But a lot of the time, these kids are dealing with the placidity of their reality. They go to school, they feel like shit at school, nobody understands them, their friends are all fake, their parents are completely disengaged and can't even try to comprehend them. And then they come home and they just feel totally alone. Totally alone.
Interesting enough, in this world where, especially in school, where the message is that you're a part of a group, Yeah,
and what does that tell you when you hate your peers? You hate your group. The group hates you. You're picked on. These are the people that I have to associate with. I remember when I was a little girl, I hated other girls. I hated them. I didn't like. I don't like Spice Girls. I don't like Britney Spears. I don't like this crap that they're listening to and doing. I don't like these magazines. I don't like cheerleading. I don't like Bring It On. Like all this stuff that they were obsessed with. They were so. I just didn't. And then they would like walk by my house, not calling me, and they didn't connect with me because I just didn't get them. I didn't get how you could like all this stuff. I wanted to be a boy. Like when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a boy because boys got me. Like we ran around and climbed trees and played with Pokemon cards. That's like the stuff I liked. And then I grow up and I realize, hey, it's not because I'm not a real girl. It's not because I'm not feminine. It's not because I'm different or because I'm a boy in a girl's body. It's because the girls that were around me were fucking idiots. They were so dumb that I literally felt like a different animal from them.
So go ahead.
And then you grow up, hopefully, and you find people that can relate to you. I have so many wonderful female friends now. But when you're 14, you can't even comprehend that you'll grow up and you will find your place. And then you don't have to associate with those people anymore.
Yeah. So it sounds like there were sacrifices for whatever reason at that age that you weren't willing to make. And I made them all, I remember being terrified of not fitting in, of not having friends. And I think it was like I was in 8th grade and I figured out that all I really needed to do to be accepted by the cool kids in middle school was to have clothes that said Polo on them or that said J. Crew on them. And, I came from like a reasonably wealthy family. So I said, hey, Mom, Dad, we got to get our act together here with this wardrobe, so I can fit in this school. And that actually worked. I became one of those kids, a total conformist, a total go along to get along, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old. I don't really remember when it changed, because I don't feel like I was even, I feel like really in college when I went together, when I found myself together with a bunch of like upstate New Yorkers, that it really hit me, like all these guys, they talk the same, they use the same words, they have the same shoes, They have the same tapered jeans with the same shirts tucked into it. They use the same hair gel to produce the same hairstyle. And I'm not into this. And that was, I think, I was probably 19 or 20 years old the first time the concept of conformity occurred to me. And I wanted nothing to do with it anymore. It was the first time I remember being like proud to stick out. But I just wonder, listening to your story, when that first experience comes for people, because it's not really being encouraged anywhere. I mean, you might see, I always go to these middle school posters, right? Have self-esteem, be an individual, ask questions, right? But in that actual environment, there are no rewards for doing those things. Yes, it's a nice poster to pass in the hallway, but if you actually try to do these things, there's like punishment. It's social, it comes from the authorities, it shows up in your grades. So those are pretty empty messages as far as the school environment is concerned.
And I mean, you tooted my horn a bit, but I conform too. I remember, watching the movies they watched and trying to like them. I remember like pretending to be into the whole cheerleading thing. I remember buying like a teen magazine and like reading it cover to cover. And I remember trying, and it was always fake. Like I never enjoyed it. And, I was lucky because I don't know, I started listening to music, like metal music, and metal has this, alternative metal, punk, they have this long history of nonconformity in their message. And it gave me a lot of strength. And I know it's such a preteen thing to do, but a lot of teens really get their strength from music. And a lot of teens who feel different and can't find those social groups, they find that in lyrics and music. And I found a few friends who liked the same stuff as me, and we were just like little kids, and we we weren't into what these we weren't like into like giving guys oral sex in grade 6. We were into drawing like anime and stuff. So, and then I went to high school. And so in middle school, it's like you said, there's no reward system for being an individual. And your own peers punish you for it, and you step out of line and you're not accepted anymore. And I used to think wearing a short skirt or like going and grinding with a guy in an underage club is how you get a guy to like you. Mm-hmm. And then I went to high school, and the first year was a bit hard. But then by grade 10, you blossom, especially girls. Girls, they go through this really awkward, I can't speak for boys because I'm a girl, but they go through this awkward stage, and then they become women. They blossom. They become themselves. They reach that point where they start to understand their own thoughts. And I became myself, and I stopped thinking that I have to act like somebody else. And that started late middle school and really formed in high school. And I made real friends. Boys liked me because I liked me. Mm-hmm. And I know not everybody has that experience because their high school sucks, or their peers, there's just nobody in their school that gets them.
We're just thinking about the whole topic of collectivism and conformity. And I forget whether it was Rand or Peikoff or one of their, no, it was the Ominous Parallels. Peikoff said something like, in those types of societies, and I really think that school is a microcosm of this, the individual only exists as part of the group, and how the individual serves or correctly fits into the group.
Look at Japan. That's exactly how their society is, and they have the highest suicide rate out of any first world country, especially with teens. They have suicide forests. Their teens commit suicide all the time. And it's not because they're poor or whatever, it's not economic circumstances. It's all peer pressure and feeling inadequate and not having individuality.
Yeah, absolutely. Social pressures, school pressures, I think are a big part of it. Mm-hmm. People, I've had lots of conversations about like how to make the American school system better. Like that's a thing that could be done, or that's a thing that is a realistic goal.
Man.
And people always talk
about... Get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, people always bring up Japan like the reformers, they say, well, look how well they do in Japan. And I've always said, yeah, I like to balance things like test scores with like suicide counts, you know, to see if they really have a school system that we would want to emulate in the United States. Like test scores, yeah, they're killing it. But let's look at their suicide rate too and see if that really is an effective culture and system to bring to the United States, a beneficial culture and system. So to the bigger topic of collectivism. And I know now I'm so stuck in school because I remember being a student teacher and I remember teachers talking about the cliques, like this self-organization of students in the school. They talk about cliques with the same kind of predictability that like political strategists like James Carville or Karl Rove would talk about these voting blocks they create, you know? So it was the same kind of like complete disregard for individual thought that was actually being discussed by teachers in this school where I taught, you know, like, oh, the jocks, they do this. And I think was aware enough at that point to be kind of disturbed by what I was hearing.
Did you find that the teachers almost joined specific cliques or favorite popular students? So I find in my middle school, the teacher would actually like hang out and give precedence and voice to the students that were cool, even if they were failing their class or whatever, or like not good students. And even in high school, my sister, they had to do a presentation on a political theory, and she chose objectivism and Ayn Rand. Mm-hmm. And the teacher, I had this teacher too, and I will grant him that he's a good teacher in terms of objective marking. Mm-hmm. But he's a total socialist, and he actually ridiculed my sister and played like a video from the Colbert Report making fun of people who like Ayn Rand, and the entire class went along with him and made fun of her about it. And I mean, it wasn't like incredibly vicious, but I think it was very inappropriate for a teacher to completely side against her in a project that he assigned about political theory. She was allowed to present on what she wanted to. Mm-hmm. At least he still gave her an A because she did a good job. But the social aspect of that, I think, is very fascinating, that he almost had to assert his opinion to a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds in order to feel like a human being or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my only experience in that ballpark, no pun intended, was I wanted to play baseball freshman year, right? But I was like a real chubby guy.
Really?
A chubby little guy. Yeah, I was. And
it's really hard to believe.
I was slow and I ran funny, and I loved baseball so much. I was obsessed with baseball from like the age of 10, like well into my teens. The Red Sox, and going to games and keeping score, and even some weirder, more obsessive stuff that I got into. But that's another subject.
You only wore Red Sox.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I was really a big deal to play baseball on the school team. Like I'd always played, like the Little League, and then there's like a level above Little League. So I was excited to play at my school. But, most of the baseball practices were running around a track. And I couldn't run. I was just slow and underdeveloped compared to the other kids, and I was small. And they started calling me Froggy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like all the kids, they called me that. And it wasn't like they all hated me, but they just like it would really feel terrible when we had to do the running. And then the coach started calling me that.
Yeah, this is where it's like adults, you're so pathetic that you want like the approval of some like 10-year-old clique to accept you as being cool. I saw that all the time with teachers. It's like so pathetic and sad that an adult needs the approval of 10-year-olds. I mean, we're so complex, but we're at the bottom line, we're simple. Everybody wants to be accepted and liked, which is a really dangerous thing.